Hello, I'm Peter Bell, and I'm here with Chris Paul to talk about Julian Resources, JLR, and the TSX venture. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty excited right now. We're just gearing up for a pretty big drill program down in southern BC. Finally get to work in my neck of the woods in my backyard. I've been, working hard up in the Golden Triangle all summer, and it's pretty remote up there. You're about 5 hours from the nearest town, so being able to work in your hometown of Kelowna, having a core shack and everything, based here is quite the luxury, to say the least.
Well, and I wonder if it doesn't translate into better field work too.
I think so. I think there's always, an element of distraction when you're trying to manage a camp of 20 plus people and two drills and, helicopters. Anytime you add that, there's always that element of just, you're trying to be more of a logistics manager than doing actual geology. It's a common problem, but one that can't really be avoided when you're working that remotely. So yeah, you're right. It allows us to focus a lot more on the actual drilling and less on what's breaking down in the camp.
And you're not joking about the drilling either. There's been some good news from the company explaining what's coming, and grateful to hear about the big rig. Do they call it a hydrocore?
So the hydrocore 2000 is the sort of smaller rig. That was what we were employing at the Hank last summer on the Golden Ridge project I was working on, and that's more, that's a heli portable. It's a sort of the smaller exploration rig for, nice and light for the helicopters. But, typically, they call it the 2000 because it's capable of drilling 2000 feet. So that, equates to about 600 meters, and that's your max. That's, if conditions are ideal. So we've employed a new style of rig. We've hired a company, a new company out of Smithers. They're called Revolution Diamond Drilling, and these guys are great. They're innovators. They're led by a fellow by the name of Trevor Hooper, who's a fairly well-known, well-respected diamond driller in Canada, and he's basically branched off to do his own sort of entrepreneurial thing. And what they've done is they actually got a grant, interestingly, from the government of Canada, and I believe they got around $1.5 million from the government to basically build a new diamond drill rig. Because
Really?
Let's face it, I mean, really, diamond drills haven't come a long way in the last, call it 20 years. There's sort of the two. You got your hydrocore, which is the smaller one, and you got the A5, which is the bigger one. And, there's lots of drilling companies out there, but no one's really tried to innovate. People just, keep trying to sort of use the same old machines, and, we'll call them dinosaurs, right? Because they just don't want to evolve. They just want to, use what's already out there. And Trevor, he's an innovator, and it's interesting. His drill is all digital. There's just a whole bunch more advancements on his drill rig. I mean, I could go on for about half an hour. I don't want to bore you with all the details, but long story short, this thing is capable of drilling 3,000 meters. If you really wanted to go that deep, and it's powerful. So it can drill quickly.
Wow.
It's lightweight. It's about the size of a hydrocore 2000. So, in terms of if you were to employ it on a helicopter drilling job, it's the same number of lifts as a hydrocore. And, it's amazing. You look at these old drill rigs and there's, it's just like a spider web of hydraulic hoses. There's like 100 going in all different directions. And, it's cool. You go to these guys' website. This thing's got 4 hydraulic hoses. It's as simple as can be. And, it's really great. So we're super excited to be testing out this new rig. It'll be a skid job, of course. In this case, no helicopters involved. But obviously, if all goes well, Ridgeline's going to be working a lot with these guys and employing it on some of the other projects we work on.
That's
as well.
amazing.
Fly job.
I didn't realize the significance of all that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Is has it is this one of the first campaigns that it'll be used on?
Yeah, pretty much. We're trialing it out, and Trevor understands that, and we're sort of putting a lot of faith in each other. He's given us a pretty smoking rate, which is works good for both companies. It's winter work for him when times are typically quite slow in the industry, especially in British Columbia. There's not much places you can drill in the winter, except for southern BC, and I know the only other people I can think of probably that are drilling this time of year is probably West Haven, which is pretty close to our project that you've called to talk about today, which is the Big Kid. They're just over in Merritt, and we're just east of Merritt, so yeah.
It's I've seen somebody posted online the link to one of the highway cams, and it's looking back pretty close to the area around the bend in the highway and all this where your project area is located. Pretty funny to see.
Yeah, so that's funny. You bring that up, and people always ask, well, what's the snow like, and is that going to be a problem? Well, actually, we need a bit of snow. Ironically, this is something I didn't know until very recently. But when you're winter drilling, obviously you're at night you're getting down below minus, you're getting down below 0 degrees. You're getting into the negative temperatures, and the water lines will freeze up if you don't insulate them properly. And it turns out that snow is a great insulator. So
wonderful.
When you're winter drilling, you want to see at least a foot or a few feet of snow on the ground, because that'll insulate your water line, and that'll stop things from freezing up on you. So yeah, it's kind of perfect, and you're in a nice little rain shadow just east of Merritt. It's very dry out there. You just get a few sparse pine trees and a few feet of snow, and yeah, we couldn't ask for better conditions.
Good. Well, I might mute myself here a second, making announcements on the ferry.
No problem. If you have any specific questions about the project you want to talk about, I can go on a little rant here while you mute the phone. We'll ask away.
I'm afraid they're going to keep going, but maybe one, the geology, Shovel Nose versus Big Kid.
So, the geology is obviously we're very close to each other. To speak on the geology of the Big Kid, I think it's important more to talk about the sort of Copper Mountain to New Afton story. There's a belt of rocks. It's called the Nicola Group, and that's a belt of volcanic rocks. And it's sort of been divided into three main groups. You get the west, the central, and the eastern facies. And the central is really the important one, and that's where all these alkalic porphyries such as Copper Mountain, New Afton, and of course, moving north, there's a whole bunch more, as you go up north through the Cornelia Belt. But between Copper Mountain and Afton, there's a very important structure, and that's separating the central facies from the eastern facies, and that travels right through the Big Kid property. It's called the Kentucky Allegheny Fault, the segment which we're in. And it's an extremely important structure because it's what it's done is it's controlled the emplacement of all these alkalic copper gold porphyries. And it's amazing. The Big Kid project is sitting where it is, between these two major mines, and is so underexplored. The last time it was actually drilled, the Big Kid breccia, which is the target that we're after, was 2003. And it was sort of first discovered, we'll say, when they're putting through the connector highway from Merritt to Kelowna, and there was a road cut that sort of intersected across this important structure that I'm talking about that runs from Copper Mountain through to Afton. And there was, some really nice copper gold mineralization, and that was in the early 90s, and 1993, when it was discovered, it was picked up right away by Placer Dome, and they did a little bit of exploration, and it didn't take them long to find that there was a breccia pipe on the property. And the breccia pipe is about 600 meters long by about 400 meters in width, and it's an intrusive breccia. And those are very important structures, especially when you're looking for porphyries, because what it is it's evidence of very explosive hydrothermal mineralization. Basically, the rocks were under so much pressure at depth that they basically exploded into a breccia of shattered fragments that were filled in by hydrothermal solutions, bringing up copper, gold, potassic alteration, all these sorts of things. So what it is it's basically evidence that there was so much sort of fluid pressure and from these mineralizing fluids that they actually kind of exploded everything at depth. So when Placer started drilling it, in the early 90s, there, they put a few holes into this breccia, and they were all very well mineralized. But of course, they were just putting in shallow holes, 200-meter holes and whatnot. And interestingly, a junior called Christopher James Goldcorp came in right after that, and they were able to pick it up from Placer, and they did a few drill programs of their own, and they sort of took it on from there. And they drilled in 97, 99, and then 2003 was the last drill program. But pretty well all the holes that they put into this breccia pipe were mineralized, all throughout the breccia. But of course, they just did these short little holes and angled holes. And it was funny, in 2003, they ran out of money, and they were drilling, and basically they were basically on IOUs with the drillers, and the drillers picked up and said, you know what, that's great. We understand you guys are really excited about this project, but without any money, we're packing up shop and we're getting out of here. And that was the last time the last time the breccia was drilled. So crazy that here we are in 2019, 16 years later, and this thing has somehow been orphaned, right? No one really looked at this thing. So our group identified it, a couple of years ago, and started talking to the management of Julian Resources, who ultimately ended up with the project after. I guess I should mention Christopher James ran out of money, and then another small junior called Gunpoint picked it up and didn't do any exploration, and sold it to Julian, and Julian got it for a really good deal, no underlying royalties, and they held on to it for a couple of years. Xstrata, obviously a really big company, major mining company, came in 2012. And instead of drilling the breccia pipe, they went off into the far corners of the property, and they had a very young, sort of recent graduate geologist running the program, and he wanted to drill these, geophysical anomalies, over here, because they did some airborne surveying, and they never even drilled the breccia. So they went and drilled like 5 holes off in, far reaches of the property, nowhere near the known mineralization, and then said, thanks, Julian, but we're not getting enough excitement out of this thing to keep going. And they dropped the option after that. And so Julian sort of was dead in the water, and sort of, holding on to this project they just got given back to them, and didn't really do anything with it. So, that was the last thing to happen in 2012. So obviously, we came along and said, this is unreal that, this breccia deposit sitting there, and, really is not getting looked at. I mean, you got all these major mines in the area, Highland Valley, just to the west, you got Copper Mountain just to the south, and you got Afton just to the north. And, infrastructure, is incredible. You got the highway, you got the power lines crossing the property. There's a cell tower on the property. You got pretty much everything you could ask for. And, of course, quite subdued terrain. It's not like the rugged glaciers of northern BC. So, it was pretty much a no-brainer. And so we sort of came along and decided to take on the project, and here we are, a year and a half later. We got permits in hand, 5-year permit, and drill's going to be spinning tomorrow. So exciting times.
February 1st, 2019 here. Amazing.
That's right. That's
What
right.
a
That's
sleeper!
right.
It's a sleeper story of all, I think. Just in many ways, there. I appreciate what you said about Extrata too, going off to chase this anomaly and that anomaly, and it's nice that they left this thing that should have been followed up on, for whoever found time and made the effort to do it. And it's wonderful. It's you guys.
Yeah, we shake our heads going, how could, anyone do that, right? When you got this 600 meter by 400 meter surface showing that's every hole they put into this thing has returned excellent copper gold mineralization. And you're talking about short holes that, when they got into it, you're hitting 120 meters of over 1 gram per ton gold equivalent. And when I say gold equivalent, it's just the copper and the gold component. So there's about a 4-to-1 gold copper ratio. So,
Oh, really?
You'll have say 0.2 or 0.3 copper, and with that you'll be getting 0.8 to 0.9 grams gold on top of that. So a really gold rich porphyry system, which is something you don't see very often, ratios like that. But hey, we'll take it.
Well, and let's do some more exploration on that and see where's a more copper rich zone too, and is the gold still running high in that area, and we end up getting elevated levels of both.
Well, yeah, no kidding, and it brings up a good point, because if the 0.2 copper is carrying 0.8 gold with it, you can just imagine if you start to get into some 0.5 to 0.7 to 0.8 copper, and the ratio is consistent, you're gonna get in some really wicked high grades, especially for a porphyry deposit. That's in British Columbia, that's just not something you see very often. That end, you probably saw there was the recent IP work that we just did. So, of course, before we went in and started drilling here, we wanted to do a little bit of IP work. And again, that's something that didn't cost us very much. We had SJ Geophysics out of Vancouver, so it was a short 3-hour drive, from Coquitlam for them to get up there. And they started the survey beginning of December. They did a 3D array, which is a little bit better than your typical 2D array surveys where, all the electrodes are along a single line. They actually offset the electrodes. So it's a special type of array, and that allows them to see not only in 2 dimensions, which is a regular IP survey, but you offset them off the line and you get that third dimension of data. So when you actually do the 3D inversion, it's a more robust model, because you actually are collecting data in all 3 directions instead of 2, as you normally do. And we did very tight spacing. We did 50-meter dive holes as opposed to 200, which we've done in the past. 50-meter line spacing, and all centered over this brecciaite. We want to know, okay, we have the information on the known mineralization that's already been drilled. Let's survey over that and let's see where it's going. Is there a plunge to this thing? We don't want to do what Extrata did and survey, the whole property and go test all these funny anomalies. Let's start where it's known and let's work our way up from there. And crazy enough, we got the results back. What you typically expect with a porphyry is, okay, you'll have your nice copper gold core, and then outboard of that you'll have a pyrite halo, and that pyrite halo will be very chargeable, have the highest chargeability. In this case, the highest chargeability actually correlated directly with the known mineralization. So the chalcopyrite is, I don't know if it's more chargeable or if they're just, the pyrite halo isn't very large on this thing, but it makes our job really easy when that the mineralization is high chargeability, and then it helps obviously with your targeting. And so what that survey showed us, which you saw, was it's got the Big Brother zone at depth, and
yes,
on surface, we're getting chargeabilities greater than 40 milliseconds, which in its own right is incredibly high. Most people are happy with 20 milliseconds plus chargeability, and the Big Brother zone, actually the highest reading that they got was 136 milliseconds. So just incredibly high stuff. People always get a little bit skeptical. Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly right. People get skeptical when they see IP because they see these anomalies, and how many times have you seen companies get excited and announce they've got this chargeability anomaly, and they drill it, and it's clay or groundwater or graphite or something other than sulfides. But the reality is you're not going to get chargeabilities that high in anything other than sulfides, right? Which is metal. So you need sulfides to create 136 millisecond chargeability. At least, we're fairly confident, it's not clay or magnetite or something like that, right? We're fairly confident that there's at least quite a bit of sulfide down there. So we'll see what the grades are.
Absolutely. Well, and again, great to hear another bit of innovation there along the way from you guys, and using new tech to do things better, this and that. One question I had from that 3D image that was published showing the geophysics was depth range of that Big Brother zone.
So so the Big Brother, I would say the top of the Big Brother is about 200 meters below surface, approximately.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's not crazy deep when you do the only sort of I guess when you do 50-meter dipoles that really tightly spaced high resolution IP surveying, is you're not going to get as deep. So the survey, when you do 50-meter dipoles, you're looking down probably confidently about 500 meters, and really that's all we need to see, because in the first stage of drilling, we just want to use that IP to show us, okay, where is this thing plunging? What direction is it heading? And if we can get down 500 meters of mineralization, with the drill, it's basically hallelujah, right? And you just have to keep tracing it down dip with the drill. We don't really need the IP to show us what's at 1,000 meters. That's the drill's job at that point.
Yeah, well, the beauty is, again, that you'll be able to keep putting casing down the hole and keep that hole going.
That's right. Yeah, no, we're certainly not limited by depth with the new Revolution drill. That's for sure.
What a scenario you've found here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then to put it into a company that was valued by the market there for a very low number. I was looking at one of the decks from December, I believe it was, and the enterprise value at the time was just under $1 million, and that's with over $1.2 million cash in the treasury at the time. And I think there's been more come in with some flow through since then, and just a very unique setup for a BC exploration story in February here, unheard of.
No, that's exactly right, and I'm not directly management of Julian Resources. Ridgeline, I should clarify. Our services company's been contracted to do the work here, but from what I understand, I believe there's around $1.5 million in the bank. I know I was talking to the directors, and I know some warrant exercises have already started to come in. So you're right. I mean, I saw we had a pretty good trading day today. I think it closed around 14 cents. But last I checked, I mean, when I was talking to people at Roundup, the market cap was $2.8 million, and you're right, with $1.5 million in the bank, you get a $1.3 million enterprise value. So, you consider the value of just a shell is about $1.3 million on its own. So, you're kind of getting the property for free as it is right now.
Well, and people don't know what to make of it, right? And I think that's a thing around Ridgeline exploration itself. People, I think there's a lot of people still wondering, who are you guys? What are you doing? What's going on? So, being able to help execute this field program here, that'll put you guys on the map for 2019 in a big way.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, obviously Ridgeline was working on the Hank project this summer for Golden Ridge, and certainly we had a pretty nice success story this past summer with the discovery of the Williams Zone, and yeah, it sure would be nice to go, back to back here and go right from the summer Golden Triangle discovery right into a winter discovery down in southern BC, and then of course back to it next summer in the Golden Triangle, right, and stepping out on the Williamstone. So
I wonder potential risks too with the new drill. Foresee any headaches, or I guess the Revolution Drilling wants to see it work.
Yeah, and it's a good question, and obviously that's something we were concerned with too. It's anytime you're testing out something new, there's always potential for possible bugs, and so what we did is we sort of addressed that with Trevor, and we created a contract where we were paying an all-in rate. So instead of your typical drill contract where you pay so much for core, but if the drill has to ream the hole or stabilize, condition, all these other things, or downtime, typically you're paying for that as well. If the drill's, all the muds that are consumed at the drill, you're paying for that as well. And it's always unfortunately been a system of trust. The way it works is, at the end of every shift, the driller has a paper timesheet, and he writes down, I used, one bucket of this $500 mud and another bucket of this $300 mud, and realistically, did he really use a whole bucket? Who knows? But the Revolution drills, I was saying earlier, it's all digital. So what it's doing is it's actually recording to the drop how much this mud was used, how much diesel was used, how many minutes of stabilizing was done, and at the end of every shift, you get, fed digitally to you on your computer. You can see exactly, what the drill production was for the shift. They were coring from 7 p.m. to 9, and then they had to do 20 minutes of stabilizing and all this and that. So it sort of eliminates the need for trust anymore on those, drillers' paper timesheets, right? And you get charged for all that stuff. But in this case, we said, look, Trevor, you guys are new, and this is a great looking system, but let's do an all-in rate for this first one, and Trevor agreed to that. So basically, we're only paying for core that's delivered. So let's just say, God forbid, there's something that isn't working correctly on the drill for 3 days straight. That's no cost to us. That's no cost to the company. We're only paying for what gets delivered to us as core, and nothing else. I mean, they're taking care of their own accommodations and merit and everything else. So no, it's a great contract, and all gets back to the old thing of more meters in the ground, right? The less we're spending on everything else is just more meters in the ground. That's great.
I wonder, core diameter, do we have a sense?
Yep. Yeah, so what we're going to do is start with HQ, and we'll collar all the holes with HQ, which is your wider diameter core. And once the ground conditions are good, because typically the top, say 50 meters of the hole, the ground will be quite rubbly and broken and bad ground conditions. Once the ground conditions get good at a certain depth, you neck it down to the smaller core size, which is NQ. And so having that sort of HQ casing go down, whatever it is, call it 50 meters, allows you to go, deeper with the NQ. So, we'll be using the two different core sizes in conjunction, and all of it's going to be oriented. So we'll be able to get the true strike and dip off all the orientations, off all the structures, I should say, in the core. So all your mineralized veins and contacts and everything. So we'll have a really good idea after this program of where things are plunging and trending, and how we're going to step out on this thing, and if there's a resource to be built, how we're going to orient the holes and sections to build that resource.
Wonderful. Yeah. And that breccia zone, showing its surface there, it lit up on the 3D geophysics a little bit as well. So some nice low risk targeting to begin with, I guess.
Yeah, no question. And we're like I said, we're gonna start in the known stuff, and we're gonna test a few different orientations. The great thing is the past operators have done all the legwork for us, right? So they've sort of narrowed us in on where to start, and the only thing that they didn't provide is sort of what the orientation of the mineralization might be, whether that's mainly you have, let's say, sets of mineralized veins that are trending northwest or they're trending northeast. We don't know. So the first few holes are sort of designed to test a few different orientations and figure out, okay, with the oriented core, what is the optimal orientation for our drill holes? And once we've established that, then it's a matter of stepping out at depth and along strike and building it out.
Well, and some geology to figure out there too. I wondered about that breccia at surface and then the Big Brother down at depth, and they seem to kind of be pointing towards each other in some way, but weren't showing up as being connected on the chargeability there.
No, and we showed in the last press release, we put that sort of video flyby of the 3D model, and we clipped the chargeability for that model at, I believe, 43 milliseconds. So what you're seeing there is everything's greater than 43. Now of course, you can't put too much stuff in there; it just gets too noisy for people to understand. But if you clip it to say 20 milliseconds, you start to see a bit of a plunge. So starting at surface and plunging southwest and connecting with the breccia body. I think it's better illustrated if you look at the 2D section that we put. So I think we have one section on there on the news where we showed, okay, here's where the historic drilling is, and then it's sort of, you get your yellow or orange colors plunging to the west on section towards the Big Brother, and that's where things really light up, is at the Big Brother. So obviously our hope is we get some nice mineralization there at surface that might bode well for a potential starter pit situation, and then possibly the Big Brother grades might get better at depth there, and then you'd be looking at somewhat of a block cave type scenario like Afton. And it's good because you got Copper Mountain to the south as an open pit operation, so that kind of gives you some idea of what sort of tonnages and grades are needed to justify open pit. And then Afton to the north is a block cave operation, and so again, another idea of what's economic in this part of the world, what sort of grades and tonnages are economic for underground operations. So Afton, there's somewhere around 0.8 equivalent, copper equivalent, and that's enough to justify a very deep underground operation there. C-zone is 1,400 meters below surface. Sometimes you always hear people saying, oh, well, okay, great, Big Brother, but, how deep is it? How are you guys going to mine that deep? Well, but mine, in Kamloops, their deepest deposit is 1,400 meters below surface, and 0.8 equivalent, right? So 0.4 and 0.4, copper and gold is working there and making them money. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all the introductory information here. Lots that I didn't know. So.
Yeah, no, you bet, Peter, and always happy to talk about the project, and obviously there's still a lot that we don't know ourselves that's going to be revealing itself over the next couple of months here. So yeah, very exciting. I hope that we should have some good drill result news out, hopefully in March here. We're going to have very fast turnaround on the assays. Of course, that was the big problem, in the summer, especially in the north, when you have so many companies all drilling at once in one small part of the world, the labs get pretty backlogged. We're going to be using ALS in Kamloops, and so that's one of the biggest labs out there, and their capacity in the winter is, things are slow. So, they're promising some very, very, very quick turnaround times for us. We also have done some negotiations with them for even faster turnaround times. So when there's always the option for getting rush assays, and that's typically they like to charge double the price for rush assays, but we negotiated a better rate, and they're going to give us 1.5x the price, and so we should get assays turning around in a week, if not less. So should be able to have some drill results pretty quickly on this thing, and yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Chris Paul.
Anytime, Peter. Great talking to you.
You too.
Bye for now.